To OU Live. My name is Rabbi David Pardo. You're on with us. It's good to have you back. Something I wanted to ask you, it's just been amazing watching the kind of programming and content that's coming out. I was speaking with someone recently who had to leave a local siyum in order to attend a national siyum, and of course, never leaving the comfort of her armchair. So I wanted to ask you, we have at the OU, we have a daily Tehillim phone call every day at 1 p.m., 773-377-9170. The number is on the front page of the OU. People have been calling in, showcasing a different rabbi from the OU network of shuls, and incredible reception. So first, I want to let you guys know about that. Every day at 1 p.m. It's a Tehillim phone call. And I also want to hear from you what sorts of programs or activities, national, local, have come out in the past week or two in response to the COVID crisis that you've found really inspiring, meaningful, that really keep you in it to win it. Drop us an email, oulive@ou.org, or you can drop it in the comments down below. If you're watching on the website, if you're watching on Facebook, or if you're watching on YouTube, would love to hear from you. And even if it makes sense, maybe to showcase the program or the person running the program. In the meantime, we have a great lineup for you tonight. In a little bit, we're going to hear from Rabbi Dovid Jenkins of OU Kosher about what really goes on the front lines, and from the founder of a group called Kosher Troops, servicing the service members who are taking care of us abroad. In the meantime, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Rabbi Steve Weil. Rabbi Weil is the Senior Managing Director of the OU. He was also the rabbi for almost as long as I can remember, Beth Jacob in Los Angeles. And he's on to share with us a little bit about Pesach upcoming. Rabbi Weil.
Hi, good evening. How are you, Rabbi Pardo?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's good to be with you. First of all, we want to wish everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and please God, we're going to make it through this together. Really want to wish everyone a meaningful Rosh Chodesh, a meaningful Pesach. And with Rabbi Pardo, I remember the good old days of Beverly Hills. It's an honor to be with you. We're not in Beverly Hills, but we're
not in Beverly Hills
on the East Coast. How are you?
Yeah, you know, wherever we are, we're basically in our basements or in our living rooms, so the view's more or less the same. So Rabbi Weil, in addition to all the incredible work you do for the OU, you I imagine have run, how many Pesach Starim have you run?
Yeah, each year at the hotel. This is actually probably the first year in about 17 years that I'm not serving as a scholar in residence for a Pesach program. But we get the honor of doing,
a loss for them.
we get the honor of having a public Seder where we really bring people of all different types of backgrounds together and try to get everyone involved.
So something that's on my mind, and I'm sure a lot of other people, there are an unbelievable amount of people who are running Sarim for the first time, either because they've been going to programs for a long time, or even if not, they've been going to their parents, they've been going to aunts, uncles, and this is the first time they're at home and they're running Sarim by themselves. And hopefully it'd be a good thing if we're all freaking out, because it means we're paying attention. So my first question is, what do you do before the Seder? What do you do in the weeks, the days leading up to the Seder to get yourself ready? And how do you prepare for it?
Great question. I would say this: instead of giving an afikoman present, assuming you have people at the Seder that are under the age of 18, it's not true that everyone here has that, I would pay per question. The whole point is it should be a night of curiosity, a night of stimulation. Don't give an afikoman present. This year, we're not giving an afikoman present. You know, manishtana, why is this year different than all other years besides coronavirus? The reason is because we're going to get you to think and say, we pay per question, and you can keep your own tally. That's what I would do with the kids. Now, in terms of preparing for it, look at the text. The key is the text. The text is such a rich, juicy text. I'm not saying this because I was involved, I had the great honor of working with Rabbi Genack, and we published something called an Exalted Evening. It's the Rabbi Soloveitchik Haggadah. In Exalted Evening, you can get it many places. I would normally say get it from the OU, but unfortunately, our shipping group is not there. You can get it on Amazon. The reason it's very significant is because it's an analysis of the text, and the text is so rich, okay? But ask the questions as if you were reading it for the first time. I'll give you a very simple example. Why is it, if you and I were making the Seder, what would be our text? If I asked 100 people out there, pretending you've never been to a Seder before, what would you tell me would be the text of the Haggadah? The first 12 chapters of Exodus, right? Shmos ve'era and Bo. That's the story. How come we don't have that? How come the text of the Haggadah is 4 little psukim, 4 verses, which are the story of a Jewish farmer bringing his first fruits to the Beis HaMikdash, the first fruits to the temple. After he treks up the mountains to Jerusalem, he makes his declaration. Why did the rabbis choose that? And what does that tell you about the Seder? But there are 50 questions that we could ask that are just, crucial questions that just open up literally gold mines in the Seder. And that's what, in preparation, if you don't have an Exalted Evening, whatever Haggadah you have, look at the text and write down your questions. And then see what the great commentaries say.
So, I have a practice every year. I get a new Haggadah. That's my present to myself. So probably the biggest section, just keeps growing, thank God. But how do you keep yourself from falling into the trap of saying abort, or meaning everyone around the table just saying abort? Because aborts are like they're great, but they're packaged, they're canned. The free flowing experience I feel is so elusive, where you're asking questions and people are really thinking about them and giving genuine answers. How do you get there?
It all starts with a question. Even if you don't have the answer to the question, if it's a question that's stimulating, chances are, if it bothers you, it goes to the jugular of the text, it's going to bother others. And by the way, you see, some people, they pay for answers. I personally pay for questions. But if it's a good question, it'll usually spur on very good dialogue. And again, I can't tell you which Haggadahs to use. The reason I push Rabbi Soloveitchik Haggadah in Exalted Evening is because he's not, in left field. He's dealing with the essential principles that define what the Seder is. And he's asking and wrestling with the questions that we should all be asking. That's why I'm pushing that.
How do you balance different age groups? Meaning the kind of Seder you're doing for a 5-year-old and the Seder you're doing for an 18-year-old, very different. So sometimes you have one or the other. What happens when they're both there?
Right, and I think you lay it out at the beginning of the Seder. Say, look, when you get to the Arba Banim, the 4 types of learners, remember, what's the difference between the Rasha and the Chacham? So intellectually, they both have the same capabilities. The tragedy of the Rasha is that emotionally he's challenged. Emotionally, he's crippled. And you have, of course, the Tam. And by the way, the Tam, or the Rambam refers to as the Tipesh. It's not just a kid who thinks in concrete, tangible terms. The Tam is also, there are many adults. We all have adults at our table that do not think conceptually, they don't think analytically. They think in very tangible, concrete terms. So so the Seder is really a multi-tiered Seder. Some people are visual learners, some people are oral learners. Some people, are dramatic. Some people are more abstract and cerebral. And that's reflected. And I think you have to lay that out when you get to the 4 sons as to what kind of a Seder we're having. It's a multi-tiered Seder with different layers. One thing if I could add, it's not crucial to have to cover everything at the Seder. Meaning, save certain ideas. You may throw out the question of the Seder, but use that as a conversation at lunch the next day, or use it as a conversation. We got a 3-day holiday, right? A 3-day holiday. There's a lot to talk about at lunch. You don't want to have to necessarily use everything at the Seder. And by the way, what I also would do is use the Seder as a paradigm, as a model for every Shabbat meal, for every Yom Tov meal. Meaning what? That we're throwing out serious questions and we're wrestling with them. And we're looking at text. That's another thing that we as Jews do. Let's look at the text and what is the text telling us? Through it being linear and analytical, approaching the text.
That's very beautiful. There's a lot to think about. The idea of doing this every Shabbat makes all the sense in the world. It's a
I
lot
mean,
of work, but
can I give an example?
please.
I'm not saying to do this, but let's say for argument's sake, we look at every line of Dayenu. Why each line in Dayenu? That in itself would be a reason for us to express our gratitude to God. That would suffice. So some of the lines of Dayenu, you say, is that something I'm so profoundly grateful for? Some of them are very difficult. And work on the answers. By the way, the commentaries do that. Masada Rav Kook has this commentary of many of the great Rishonim and many of the early Achronim. There are others that and you know what? Save some of those lines for lunch or for, let's say, the dinner, or for Sudash Shlishi, whatever it might be, or for
Walk
even
around the block.
Chol. Yeah, walk around the block, exactly. You know, in something else. We say Hallel multiple times throughout the year. Besides the 21 times that Chazal instituted, we say it so many times. So take some of the great explanations that you see in the commentaries you have in your house to Tehillim. Whether it's the Art Scroll did a beautiful job right now on Tanakh. The Reuben in the Milstein is Nevi'im Achronim, Reuben's Nevi'im Rishonim, but there's Tehillim. There are many other great commentaries on Tehillim. And you know what? Use that, and you use some of the questions that you would raise for Hallel. People are tired at that point in the Seder. You may want to do more singing, but you can come back to them throughout the holiday.
Striking and helpful ideas. Rabbi Weil, thank you so much for coming along and sharing those ideas with us.
Yeah, for really to everyone, stay healthy, look after your families. And I would just say this, as difficult as this time is economically for all of us, it's profoundly difficult. And many people are going to be losing their jobs. But in the midst of all of that, we have time that we can have quality time with our family, with our God, for serious, meaningful prayer, and quality time to read the kind of books or read the kind of svarim that we just never took the time to read. It's a chance to grow as a human being. It's a tremendous opportunity, and it's a time for reflection. Rabbi Pardo, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the advice. You know, we'll be looking back at these days, these weeks, maybe these months, and maybe even missing them. Thanks for coming along, Rabbi Weil. Can't wait to talk to you next. Stay safe. You are on OU Live. My name is Rabbi David Pardo. We have a great program coming up for you. In a little bit, we're going to meet one of the founders of Kosher Troops and a chaplain in the U.S. Army. I asked before, I'll ask again, if there's a program, something that you're involved in, if it's a shiur, if it's a national thing, if it's a call-in, if it's something that you're doing on a daily basis, run by an organization, run by your friend, if it's a Facebook group, I'd love to hear what's keeping you excited, what's keeping you interested. You can email us, oulive@ou.org. You can drop it in the comments, and it could be a great opportunity to promote them. In the meantime, I'm very excited to introduce a friend of mine, Rabbi Dovid Jenkins. Rabbi Dovid Jenkins is the Kashrut Rabbinic Coordinator at OU Kosher. And he's right there. There we go. Bonsai.
Hello there.
Rabbi Jenkins, what do you got there in the background?
Well, I have a fish tank in case we get hungry. Some people buy sushi. We grow our own sushi.
If you're in Brooklyn, that's the trendy way to go.
Of course, of course.
So, Rabbi Jenkins, sorry. Would you say it's a busy time around the OU now?
Well, it's a very busy time. And especially now with the situation that we're all in, that we're all working remotely. And it's a tough time. It's a tough time for all of us. But now when you have Pesach 2 weeks away, it makes it that much more of a interesting time.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, how's the current economic situation, but not just economic, you're talking like supply chains, talking about mass movement of massive quantities of food. How is that affecting the Kosher for Pesach product lines?
Well, at this point, I know that Rabbi Ganek and Rabbi Elephant were making sure, and we're talking to a lot of our manufacturers, especially our kosher vendors. There is, according to them, more than enough food for Passover for everybody to have. And unfortunately, with a lot of the Pesach programs closing down, also there might even be a little bit more than that. So there is more than enough. People don't have to go out.
The lack of pressing is gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna have. There's plenty of food. People don't have to go out and and be scared that they're not going to find food a week later. There is more than enough. I can't say in all the out of town places. I don't know about all the out of town places. I do know the New York area. There's more than enough, and I'm sure in the other cities too. There's more than enough food for everybody to be able to have. And the question is, when it comes to certain places around the country, they order for a certain amount, in the supply chain. The question is, you have people already in certain areas already overbought what was going into the supply chain. So that I don't know, but I know in the tri-state area, there's more than enough food for people to get in all of our stores.
That's a relieving news, I'm sure, for a lot of people, certainly for my wife. So my question to you is, I know I see you on a somewhat regular basis, but what is your role in the OU Kosher world?
Well, I'm what's called a Rabbinical Coordinator. There is more than 50 of us in the office. We all deal, a lot of our my fellow friends deal with different parts of the industry that they've become very accustomed to dealing with, experts in the field on different things. You'll have people in our office from the Rabbinical Coordinators who'll deal with bakeries, candy, flavors, more industrial ingredients. We have somebody, Rabbi Singer, who deals just with Passover the whole year. That's his job, dealing with Passover, because Passover runs are basically going on the whole year. The only time they're not doing a Passover run usually is during Passover, but usually the rest of the time of the year, in the supply chain, thank you, they're basically manufacturing all the time for it. So what you see.
Does that mean specific companies are always doing Passover?
Well, you have to remember like this. I'll give you an example. When you're making an ingredient, you need certain types of ingredients. You need, let's say, for example, citric acid, or you're going to need some oils. You're going to need flavor chemicals. So those are like the beginning of what's going to be in the supply chain. Those are going to be manufactured way in advance. That means when you get to that end product, so all the ingredients that were made for that end product had to be manufactured before. And the ingredients that are going into the intermediate ingredients, they have to be manufactured before. And a lot of those base ingredients and chemicals are going to have to be manufactured way before that. So that means that Passover production in a lot of aspects could be 10 months before, 11 months before the actual end Pesach product that you're getting, you're going to have. So that means there's a whole supply chain that's being, that's already manufacturing for the following Passover.
So where are these factories?
They're all over the world. You have them in China. You have them in Europe. You have them here in the United States. You have things being made all across the world for food manufacturing.
So China is a touch of a sensitive topic now as far as countries go, but I don't think a lot of the mashgichim live in China.
Well, we actually have mashgichim in China. We do use a lot of the shluchim who are excellent, who are wonderful people, who have Chabad houses in China, who do a lot of work for us. We also have a nice cadre of mashgichim that come from Eretz Yisrael, who do work for us, who are full-timers for us, who just work, for example, like Matti Grunberg, who works full-time in China for us, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks home, 3 weeks there, 1 week home. So we have a very heavy presence in China. There's a lot of manufacturing, a lot of ingredients that are being manufactured in China.
You've been out there?
Yes, I usually go there myself twice a year.
What do you bring? What does your wife want you to bring back when you go?
My wife doesn't want me to bring back anything, but don't worry, I make sure to bring something back for her anyway. You know, my wife just wants me to come home.
That's heartwarming, but I was also hoping for like a funnier answer.
Sorry.
Like real soy sauce? I don't know. Like what's
You want real soy sauce, you go to Japan.
Okay. Yeah. Perhaps culturally insensitive. So what does it look like to walk into a factory for the first time?
Well, it depends on what type of factory you're talking about, because you're talking about a very wide range of factories. For example, one of the first factories I ever walked into was actually in 1983. Was asked to go into an oil facility of cooking oils, where they refine oils, make them into shortenings, make them into what's called vegetable oils, salad oils, into margarine, into all different types of forms that oil can be made into. You have something called Teeter, something which is a very hard oil, which is actually used for shortening and for margarine, because there's a certain time, which still goes on today, but maybe not as much as before, where you had a lot of margarine and shortening being used in a lot of food manufacturing products. You have, oil, cooking oil, something that's very important for every aspect of the industry. So here you walk into a facility where you have miles and miles of piping and tons of tanks, all different types of tanks, all types of different refinery equipment. And you had in this situation, this goes back to 1983, where you were doing in this facility, they were doing kosher and non-kosher oils. They were doing soybean oil. They were doing corn oil, for an example. They were doing also lard and tallow. So now if you have lard and tallow that's going through the same facility refinery as kosher vegetable oils, how do you keep it separate? So here you're looking at miles and miles of pipes. You're looking at different types of tanks, different types of what's called deodorizers, hydro converters, all these different things. Now, how do you keep it separate? How do you keep everything that's actually a totally kosher facility if you have these type of oils in that they're refining and in these type of facilities? So you have to learn the whole plant. You have to go to the holding tanks where they're unloading the crude oils to see how they're being refined, making sure all the equipment is completely separated, making sure not only that, the hoses and the links and the couplings are different sizes, that they can't be intermingled. And you have to be on top of it from the beginning of the facility all the way to the end to make sure that the whole facility is completely separate. And that's the type of facility, when I first walked in, this is what it took us a long time to separate it correctly, because there was a few of us who were working this plant together where we kept finding connections, where you could have connections between the animal and vegetable oils. And it took a lot of work, but we accomplished it. It was a beautiful facility. In the United States today, there's not too many facilities left that are really doing animal oils anymore. There are a few, but nothing like what used to be in the past. So that was the first facility I ever walked into. Another facility I walked into was also Carnation. Carnation, the Carnation drinks. Yeah. And they asked me from the office at that time, I think it was 1987. I was living in St. Louis, Missouri at the time. They asked me to go and kosherize a spray dryer. So I walked into this facility. I look at this thing. And the first thing that this spray dryer, which is about 5 stories high, it looked like a tornado. And I thought I was back in the Wizard of Oz. And I looked at this thing and I said, what am I supposed to do with this? I didn't have a clue how to kosherize this thing. So they had to send down somebody who's not with us anymore, Reb Zisha Blech, Zecher Tzaddik Lebracha, who came there to show me how to kosher the spray dryer, which spray dryers in general are not an easy thing to kosherize.
So I'm curious. Your average mashgiach, not average, the prototypical mashgiach, first off has to be a baki in Yordea, has to know halacha inside out. But then we're talking about food science, and we're talking about maybe some like low-level engineering. Are people specializing in different like chemistry versus
Well, we're very
machinery?
fortunate at the OU that we have an unbelievable amount of talent. And I'll just tell you one story of somebody that I'm actually very close to, Rabbi Jervel, who actually can walk into a facility and can talk to any food scientist, engineer, in any aspect of what they're doing, and actually be able to give them ideas and hints of what they're doing. We have a guy by the name of Rabbi Stone, who lives in West Orange, was actually a close friend of mine. We were in yeshiva together in St. Louis. Where that man, if you want to know anything about a water system, on any aspect of a pasteurizer, he is an expert on that. And where did we all learn this? Basically in yeshiva. That means, you go in, you look at what the facility is. In order to do certification correctly, you have to know what they're manufacturing and how they're manufacturing. And before you even walk into the facility, you have to do your homework ahead of time to understand what they're doing before you get there, because you have to realize when you're going to these facilities, you're dealing with college educated, very intelligent people. You're talking about people who have masters in food chemistry. You're talking about people who are engineers. You're talking about very intelligent people. So you just can't walk in, pardon my expression, like a dummy and think that you're going to impress these people. You have to actually go in there and know what they're doing before you walk in.
Last question before I let you go. Has anyone ever asked you to bless the plant?
Yes.
Do you indulge?
We then explain to him what kosher food certification is all about. And
Does it ever get let down?
Huh?
Does anybody get let down? Like, oh man.
No, they didn't. A lot of people just don't understand what it means, because a lot of them think it's blessing the plant, which the real aspect of it is basically quality control. And a lot of the people there can understand what quality control is, but now there's another depth of quality control called kosher food certification. And to these people, that's what it is. It's another concept in quality control, a little bit more than that, because a lot of them realize the religious significance behind it.
Rabbi Jenkins, thank you so much for cutting out time to explain what actually goes on behind the symbol.
All right, and there's sushi waiting for you.
Okay, after the show.
Take care.
I'll pop right in. Take care. Say hi.
Bye-bye.
You're on OU Live. My name is Rabbi David Pardo. We're here every weeknight at 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday. We have a lineup, thank God, every night. We post in the morning. Our next guests, we're very excited to welcome Sara Fuerst, who's a co-founder of Kosher Troops, and Captain Zvi Teitelbaum, who is a chaplain in the U.S. Army. You guys are... Sara, are you there?
Yes. Hello.
Oh, there we go. Hi. Captain Teitelbaum?
Yeah, I signed in without video, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, terrific. No, now's a good time to flick it on. Sara is a co-founder of Kosher Troops, a not-for-profit I'll ask you to talk about in a second, but that's not your full-time. You're an associate real estate broker at Fuerst. Some banking background in Bank Leumi. And Captain Teitelbaum joined the Army in 2011, has been deployed twice to Iraq and twice to Afghanistan, and also spent some time in Kuwait and ran Starim, not the kind of Pesach programs most of us want to be on, but are curious to hear more about. So for those of us who don't know, first off, thank you for joining the program.
Thank you.
For those of us who don't know about Kosher Troops, could you tell us what it is?
Yeah, so Kosher Troops is a nonprofit organization run purely by volunteers. It sends care packages to the Jewish American troops that are stationed all over the world.
And how did you had this idea? How did it start?
Well, no, I did not have this idea. It started when my daughter had her bat mitzvah, in 2008. She's married with a kid now. And we were looking for a something to do meaningful for her bat mitzvah. And we decided that since it was near Purim, we're going to send care packages to the troops, Shalach Manas. And at that time, we collected about 150 names, and we sent out 150 packages that the girls at the party put together.
Wow.
Yeah.
After that was a great start. And then you were like, let's turn this into an organization.
So basically after that, we got so many responses, both from the troops and from the people in the community that we reached out to for help, that it was like, everybody's like, such a great idea and this and that. And the troops were so happy. You thank you so much that you didn't forget us. And I said, you know what, Purim is not a big deal. Purim is just like, some hamantash and some candies. What's going to happen for Pesach? So I got nervous about Pesach, and I recruited my neighbors and I told them, do you want to adopt a soldier? And I got people to adopt the soldiers, and we sent stuff for Pesach, and then we kept on going and going. And that's how my partner Eva got involved, because she was my neighbor. And that's how, the two of us just kept on going gung-ho. And Eva's like, we got to make something out of this. We got to make it into a real thing. And that's a couple months later, I guess by Rosh Hashanah, we started like really seriously. And we made it into a real thing, non-for-profit, to be able to reach out to real companies that gave us, the real food donations, and for people to give us donations that are tax deductible, et cetera,
And Captain Teitelbaum, how are you involved in Kosher Troops?
I'm not involved with Kosher Troops. I'm a chaplain of the United States Army. I'm a soldier, and I'm a recipient of the Kosher Troop packages.
When was the first time? How did that happen?
First time, I believe it was 2015. I believe it was 2015, September. I showed up to Kuwait. Weather started to cool down already. The summer was over, and the hot weather was over. So it was only about 115, 117. I came into the chaplain annex where I was told I'd be doing my services. I went into the back room. I tried to push the door open, and I couldn't get it open. It was piled. The entire room was piled all the way up with packages from Kosher Troops to be used during and at the services, and to be distributed throughout the country for the kosher, for the Jewish troops. That was
the country of Kuwait.
This was in Kuwait.
And you were suddenly in charge of distributing this food.
Yes. In charge of distributing, sharing. Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. It was really fantastic.
Sara, how do you find the Jewish soldiers, or do you send boxes of matzah to just anyone with a Goldstein last name? How does that work?
Since we started, we follow up on them. We're like, I don't know, sometimes I'm afraid they're gonna think I'm like I'm like running after them, but we follow them. I find them on Facebook, or we just continue the communication with them. For example, if I send stuff to somebody for Purim, I ask them, are you still there for Pesach? And if not, where are you going? So we follow up with them all the time. Or sometimes people like, Chaplain Teitelbaum, who knows about Kosher Troops, will tell me, by the way, I'm going to Afghanistan, next month, and I'm going to need you to send me stuff for the Seders and whatever. And so it goes both ways. I mean, at this point, most of the Jews in the military knows about Kosher Troops, so they reach out to us.
So you're not just sending food, you're actually maintaining relationships with people over time.
Absolutely. We actually have hosted cadets from West Point for Shabbatons, military. Rabbi Pardo and his family has spent Shabbatons with us in Monsey, in the community of Monsey. We do have a close relationship with the military, not just sending packages. we follow up with them and they follow up with us. Sometimes we get invited to their weddings. We've actually hosted a vort and a few Sheva brachas. So they're like family for us. We're like, we're very involved with them.
And what how have things changed since COVID, since coronavirus? How's that impacted your Pesach activities?
Well, we do everything with volunteers. So you can imagine that it was very hard to get volunteers. We didn't really have any volunteers who were brave enough to come to our warehouse. So Baruch Hashem, we had this group of lone soldiers that are involved in. They have like a group of them here in New York, and they came and they helped us out. And
lone soldiers is a phrase I haven't heard associated with the U.S. military, only the Israeli one. What's a lone soldier in?
No, the Israeli lone soldier. There's a group.
Oh, Chaylim Bodedim. Okay.
Yeah, Chaylim Bodedim. That they're here and they have come in the past to volunteer for us, and they basically stepped up and they said, do you need any helpers? And I said, absolutely. We have nobody. So they came and we. This year, because you're asking about COVID, because of COVID, number one, we did not get as much food as we get donated. We usually get donations from all the food companies, the kosher food companies. And this year, we only got 25% of what we usually get.
Wow.
And we get tons of pallets of food. And, with this whole disaster happening, people were obviously, thinking about other things or whatever issues they had and whatever. And so we did, Baruch Hashem, get the 25% that we got, which basically brought us down to only sending to our state, our deployed troops, not our stateside. I would have had a total of like almost 2,000 troops to send packages to. But we had to boil it down to just the deployed, which were a little bit over 500.
And Captain Teitelbaum, what happens if the food packages don't come in from Sara? Like the U.S. Army doesn't provide kosher food?
That's actually a very good question. So the U.S. Army does provide kosher foods. However, on deployment, in general, food obviously is not available. There's no kosher food available in the dining facilities. So on deployment, we'll eat what the military will provide is mostly MREs, meals ready to eat. So the MREs made by La Briut, they're good, they're manageable. They're perfectly fine. I've used them on almost all my missions. When it comes time for Pesach, though, the La Briut meals are even better. So that the Pesach MREs are actually even better than the ones all year round. I remember one time I showed up during Tishrei and I found in a storage closet a bunch of Pesach MREs, and that's what I ate during Tishrei because they were so much better. I believe I think Mealmart makes them for Pesach or whatever it is, but this year actually, DLA, which is the Defense Logistics Agency, they're the ones who do the purchasing and all the official purchasing and supplies for the military. Usually supplies will show up maybe 6 to 8 weeks before Pesach. That's just the way it is. I mean, in October, we're already projecting and ordering for Pesach just because DLA takes quite a while until they get all their numbers in. They purchase everything at once. They need the numbers from all over the world. So it takes quite a while. Well, this year, DLA has shipped and delivered the Pesach packages, which is not only kosher MREs, it's also Seder kits. Seder kits complete with the Seder plate, the charoses, everything, including a kittel and a Haggadah and a yarmulke, a complete, they're really beautiful kits. Well, DLA has delivered this year close to 3 months in advance. So everyone on deployment will be covered for the Sedarim and whatever other kosher MREs they may need. And that's actually, those deployed this year are in better luck because they've ordered the supplies from DLA, while the folks back home who expected to go to a Seder now won't be able to go to a Seder. So they're scrambling to get stuff, and DLA is coming through. The Army's really coming through. But for those being deployed during Pesach, they're actually in the best shape in terms of Army supplies.
Captain Teitelbaum, question. What's the most exotic Seder you've run overseas?
Honestly, ironically, I've never run a Seder overseas. I always manage not to be overseas during Pesach. My deployments just lined up that way that I was never overseas during Pesach. I've supported Pesach missions overseas and Sedarim. More so this year, we're kind of coming together to support the troops because there are no chaplains who are deploying to the Middle East for Pesach. But I myself have never done a Seder overseas.
Is the military slowing down now during the COVID-19 crisis the way, any industry, any neighborhood is, or is it totally different?
The military is pretty much doing the same thing everyone else is. We're being super careful. Many of our offices are closed, which means we're working from home remotely. Hence, I don't need to be in uniform. Most of us are working from home remotely, phone numbers being transferred to cell phones, everyone taking their workstations home, which the computer, laptop. So the work has not slowed down. In many ways, it kind of picked up, but we're doing kind of the same thing everyone else is, staying home, staying safe. The military is taking great precautions to keep everyone safe. And the reason I say our workload may have increased is because we're having to look out for the troops in ways that we don't usually.
Sara, for those who are watching and very inspired by the idea, the organization, and your work, how do they get involved?
So people can donate, of course, or they can volunteer. We have local, in Muncie, we're located in Muncie, and people from the New York area, they come and they help us with whenever we pack for the troops. They can help us probably with the marketing and stuff like that, computer stuff, those kind of things that any organization needs, because everything, as I said before, is done with just volunteers.
And where do they find you online?
KosherTroops.com.
KosherTroops.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And they can reach out to you and they can reach out to Ava.
Right. I just wanted to point out one thing that Rabbi was saying about the deployed troops. We also have families that are stationed in places like Japan and Italy and Spain. And those were the ones that were also pretty much affected, especially from Italy, for example. I already got emails from military families in Italy asking me to please send them at least matzah and maybe some macaroons, because the commissary was already closed and everything was closed off and the whole country was closed. So those are we also help the military families that are stationed in different places and with their communities. So that's one of the things that I'm hoping to get. I got so far, I just got 2 replies because we sent everything as of last Friday. I got 2 replies, one from Germany that came in right away, and one from Alaska, because even though Alaska is not Europe, it's pretty far away. We figured we want to send him to. So those are the only, ones that reached out, told us we received your packages. I'm waiting to hear from the other ones. But that's also, it's not just the ones who are deployed, but it's also the families who depend on the commissary that doesn't always have stuff, or in this situation because of COVID, that they did not get matzahs or other kosher Pesach products on time.
we definitely don't often think enough of not just the sacrifice and service of the service members, but even of their families and the circles of impact. So, Sara, thank you for your work. Thanks for coming on the show, and Captain Teitelbaum, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support.
It was terrific connecting. So hopefully we could do this in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call to. This is OU Live. My name is Rabbi David Pardo. We are here every weeknight. We're here tomorrow night at 9 p.m. We'll have a great lineup. God willing, we will be releasing in the morning. If there is something that has really kept you excited, involved, and something you're looking forward to, and you are willing to share with us, OULive@ou.org. We'll see you tomorrow. This is OU Live. I'm Rabbi David Pardo signing off.